Okay, sourdough waffles. These are incredible. They're a firm family favourite. We pretty much eat them every weekend. But not only are they delicious, they're the perfect way to use up some of your leftover sourdough starter. So if you're maintaining one of these, you'll know that every day you're throwing most of it away when you feed it. But this recipe is going to allow you to use a little bit of what you'd normally throw away to make something absolutely delicious. So what I suggest you do is on a Thursday or a Friday when you feed it, instead of throwing it away, transfer it to another bowl, cover it with some cling film, pop it in the fridge, and that will be ready for the weekend to make your waffles. If you want a sort of really strong sourdough, tangy flavour in your waffle, then maybe try reserving Monday or Tuesday's feed. Again, keep it covered in the fridge. And over those 5 days to the weekend, that's going to generate some really strong flavours. So you'll need your 200 grams of sourdough starter. You'll need 150 grams of plain flour. I know we feed our starter with bread flour, or I do, but for this you want 150 grams of plain flour, 200 grams of whole milk, 20 grams of caster sugar, a good pinch of salt, or if you're being really accurate, then 3 grams of salt, 2 large free-range eggs, and then in a pan I've got 50 grams of melted unsalted butter. Now for leavening the waffles, it's not actually the sourdough starter that does that, which is why you can use sourdough starter that's been sat in the fridge for a week. That is just for the flavour. To raise the waffles, you can either use yeast or baking powder. So if you're organised and you know you want waffles the next morning, then make your batter and to it add 1 gram of instant yeast. Just a gram. I know it doesn't sound a lot, but trust me, it works. If you haven't got scales that measure down to 1 gram, but you've got one of these funky measuring spoons, then it's 1/4 teaspoon. Just make sure it's level, not heat. And if you've got neither of them, just use a regular teaspoon, and it really is just the tip of the teaspoon. It doesn't sound a lot, but like I said, it does work if you're less organised, like me, or it's not until Sunday morning when the children are going, "We want waffles!" Then don't panic, you can still make these, but just raise them with 7 grams of baking powder. So, let's do this. In our bowl, we need our 200 grams of sourdough starter. This one's like really active at the moment. This would have been perfect for making bread, but I want to show you this. So 200 grams of sourdough starter. Then to that we'll add our 150 grams of flour, I pre-weighed that, and 200 grams of milk. We're going to just get that whisked in. Because that starter's sort of quite young, it's still got some sort of strength to it, so it takes a little bit longer to whisk it in. If it's been sat in the fridge for 3 to 5 days, then you'll find it's gone quite loose and liquidy, and it'll be really easy to mix in. There we go. Now we'll add our 20 grams of sugar, our 3 grams of salt, and then our 2 eggs. 1 and 2. Get that all mixed in. There we go, and then finally our 50 grams of melted butter. There we go. So you just want to get that all incorporated, but you don't want to mix the hell out of it. There we go. You don't want to overmix it. A bit like the muffin batter. Doesn't like to be overmixed. Oh god, there we go. Right, So now, if you were making this the night before, you'd add your 1 gram of yeast. But as we're going to cook these now, I will add 7 grams of baking powder. There we go. Just beat that in. And there we go, that is ready to cook straight away. If you were using the yeast, instead of putting the baking powder, you'd add your 1 gram of yeast, cover that with cling film, pop it in the fridge overnight, so good 12, 14 hours, and then it'll be ready to cook in the morning. I did actually put a yeasted one in the fridge last night, so you can see that's how it looks in the morning. I'll show you how if you see how much air is in there, how bubbly it is. That is why the yeasted ones will give you sort of a slightly lighter, crisper waffle, and also the flavour is just an extra level. But we'll cook both of them up in a minute and you can see for yourself. Okay, so to cook your waffles, you're obviously going to need a waffle iron. Now I've got an electric one, but you can get the ones that you use on a hob, or if you don't want to invest in a waffle iron, although trust me, once you've tried these, you will be cooking them a lot. You probably could cook them a bit like an American style pancake in a frying pan, just greased with a little bit of butter. So we've got our 2 batters here. This is the one we've just made with the baking powder. This was the overnight yeasted one. So you'll just need a ladle and a timer. You want to set your waffle iron to about, mine's set to about 2/3 maximum temperature. You want it quite hot, and then we're going to cook them for 4 minutes. So let's get a ladle of this in. There we go. Probably get a little bit extra in there. You don't want to overfill it because it does then all bubble out the sides. Top down and 4 minutes. Okay, so that's been 4 minutes. You should also notice a little less steam coming out of the waffle iron when it's done. So we'll open that up. There we go. Sometimes gets stuck to the top. Take that out. There we go. So a nice golden brown, nice and crispy. We'll move that on there. Now we'll try cooking one of the ones we've just made with the baking powder, and then you'll be able to see if there's any difference. There we go. Lid down and set that for another 4 minutes. Let's have a look at this one. This one really did puff up. Here we go. There, so nice again, nice golden colour, crispy on the outside. I can see that it's still got it, maybe could have done with an extra 20 seconds. But let's give this one a little try. Really crispy shell, soft on the inside, tastes delicious. We'll just try a bit of this yeasted one. That is some next level flavour. You can also see a little bit lighter, but it's really the flavour. You get an extra sort of creamy, malty beeriness, which I think you're getting from that overnight fermentation with the yeast. So if you can get organised and make this the night before, you'll be rewarded with some fantastic waffles. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So nice. Definitely give them a go. My favourite ways of serving these for breakfast is with caramelized apples. So if you dice about 2 or 3 apples, leave the skin on, then in a pan make a dry caramel, so just 75 grams of caster sugar, no water. Heat that up, turn it into a caramel, make sure you've got a bit of colour on there, then add a good knob of butter, then throw in your apples, saute that for about 5 minutes, add a splash of water and let that simmer for about another 5 minutes. That will give you some amazing caramelised apples. Pop that on the waffle with some whipped cream, little sprinkling of cinnamon, mwah, delicious. Or even simpler, just slice some banana, get it on there with some whipped cream and some maple syrup. It's an absolute winner. Sounds a bit like a dessert. If you put a blob of ice cream with that, it would make a great dessert. But anyhow you want to do them, does that make which way, what, but any way you want to eat them is fine by me. Get some chocolate sauce on there, chocolate spread, maple syrup, bacon, eggs. I've seen these served with pulled pork, so go to town. That's the end of the video. If you've enjoyed it, as always, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm getting towards 1,000, which would be amazing. Leave your comments below. If you do bake any of these recipes, please post them on Instagram with the hashtag BuzzbyBakes, because I love to see the results you're getting. That's it. So until next time, happy waffling.